Donato's is legendary for putting so much on their pizzas, but just listen to what they're taking off. Right now, buy any large pizza and add a large one-topping pizza for half off. Use promo code HALF. Donato's, gotta love more.
The Sports Desk at the Columbus Dispatch presents the BuckeyeXtra Basketball Podcast. With your host, Ohio State basketball beat writer Adam Jardy.
Brandon Petit says, "Give me the rock." Here it goes. Up and away. Slam jam bam. And now he does a little dance.
Now, the BuckeyeXtra Basketball Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Adam Jardy from the Columbus Dispatch. Today is Monday, June 1st, 2026. It's my official duty to welcome you into episode 558 of the BuckeyeXtra Men's Basketball Podcast. Welcome to Jubilation City. Welcome to an apology right off the bat. It's been a little bit longer of a break in between episodes than certainly you're accustomed to, and longer than I'm comfortable with. Just kind of how this last 2 weeks has played out. After the Brandon Knoll interview, Ohio State's been waiting on these announcements on coaching staff and finalizing who will be in the building next season at the Schottenstein Center. And so I kept thinking that was going to be like any day. And I didn't want to do a podcast and like kind of create something out of nothing, because otherwise this has been like the quietest time of the calendar. And then immediately then have the podcast like a day later when they announced, William Buford joining the coaching staff as a program assistant, or Dave Richardson being hired as the new strength and conditioning coach. And so that on top of some other just various job responsibilities meant that I just didn't get to a podcast for like 2 weeks. And so I apologize for that. It was not the way that I thought May was going to go, but we're here today. Ohio State did formally announce all of its coaching staff moves earlier today. And we also had our first off-season interview session with head coach Jake Diebler. So we went to the Schottenstein Center and talked with Diebler for a good 42 minutes or so, and covered a whole lot of ground. And so I've written a couple of things already. By the time you hear this, I wrote a couple of my initial quick thoughts and takeaways out of the press conference. Jake Diebler was asked about his reaction to seeing Michigan win the national championship, and does that add more pressure? Spoiler alert, he said it does not add more pressure, but you can read that stuff at dispatch.com. Also had stories go up. I've spoken with Dave Richardson about his decision to leave Arkansas and come be the strength and conditioning coach at Ohio State, reuniting with Jake Diebler. I spoke with William Buford about getting into coaching and about his hopes for the role and how this came about. So you can read those stories at dispatch.com. I think I had 5 different stories go up in less than the last 24 hours. There's been a lot. So, and like I said, we're here on a Monday. It's Monday evening, and I'm going to break down some of my primary takeaways and just share, a lot of the news-ish type stuff that came out of interviews. So we're going to dive right into that here in just a second. Before we do, I'll remind you that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts. If you do subscribe, you'll automatically get the newest ones just as soon as our man Patrick Flaherty, the Podfather, can grab them and publish them for us. While you're subscribing or downloading, please leave a review, please click 5 stars, and please consider telling a friend. So as always, thanks to everyone who's taken the time to do all those things. Donato's is legendary for putting so many toppings on their pizzas, but just wait till you hear what they're taking off. For a very limited time, when you buy any large Donato's pizza, you can add a large one-topping pizza for 50% off. That's right, half off. You order using promo code HALF. Order your favorite large Donato's pizza and add a large one-topping pizza for half off today. Donato's, gotta love more. Let's get into the staff stuff first, and then we'll kind of make our way through the rest of the press conference from there. So the bullet points version here. Mike Wells officially announced as the assistant replacing Joel Justice on staff, and that I've already written about that. We've known that was happening. He's been on staff. He's been with the program here for a little while. Things move slowly at Ohio State for whatever reason. So they did not officially announce it until today. And some of this, too, it became a case of, I think, Do they want to make 4 separate announcements over various things, or just kind of, it got to a point where it's like, well, just announce everything all at once. So Mike Wells, new assistant coach, filling the role vacated by Joel Justice, although not completely filling the role. So Jamal Walker promoted from assistant to associate head coach. Joel Justice was Ohio State's associate head coach before leaving to go to Vanderbilt. And then we mentioned Dave Richardson being hired as strength and conditioning coach, and then and William Buford being hired to the program as a program assistant. So starting with Wells, he's been in the NBA for 25 plus years, was the head coach of the Adelaide 36ers in the Australian National Basketball League for the last 2 seasons. They had a heck of a playoff run, championship series loss this year. He is a Columbus area native. He's from Mount Vernon, went to Mount Vernon Nazarene University, has spent significant time in the NBA, started with the Houston Rockets started with Mount Vernon as an assistant coach, and then video coordinator for the Rockets, assistant coach for the Rockets. And then he spent time with the Lakers, the Spurs, the Wizards, the Jazz, the Hornets. He's been on staff as the Spurs won the 2007 NBA championship, and with the Rockets when they won in '94. He's worked with Team USA, part of USA Basketball. He's done a whole lot. And it's an interesting hire because it's not someone who, he has some experience in college coaching. He had a little bit of time with George Mason and with South Florida, but this is not a guy that just is making like a like for like type of move where he was an assistant somewhere and now he's an assistant at Ohio State or what have you. This is a guy who has not been in the collegiate game for a significant period of time. And I'm pulling up his bio here. So he was last in a collegiate head coach when he was at South Florida in the 2013-14 season. And then he was hired by the Jazz. He was there for 8 years. He's been around. And that was interesting to me. And I was curious to get some thoughts from Diebler on why this was the direction to go. And Diebler said a couple of times that this was a unique hire for him because he had to go out of his comfort zone a little bit. He's not hiring someone that he knows or has an extensive prior relationship with or anything like that. But he said, the more I got to know him and talk to him, it was clear to me he makes us better. He's got experience coaching, being a head coach, player development with some of the best players in the history of the game. I'm going to dive more into that here the next week or two. Working for Hall of Fame coaches. But he's also got experience in a GM role, putting a professional team together, similar to what we're trying to do now. He said all that experience, bringing in someone who sees the game differently, has been in different places, is going to push me too. He spoke about his experience at the highest level of basketball in the world, his global ties. He said he emphasized that again. He said it's going to push me. But this was something that he's being brought in to certainly help with the offense, bring some new ideas and concepts to the table. And an overarching point in this press conference, I'm going to do a quick Control F in my quote file and see. Okay, Diebler used the phrase player development 10 different times in 40 minutes. And actually possibly more than that. He used it 11 times. So this was something that kept getting referenced, something that he kept bringing up, this notion of Ohio State, when it's recruiting, really selling its ability to develop players. And he was asked about Mike Wells as a recruiter. And this was interesting to me because I thought, okay, what sort of traction will this hire have with high school players or whatever? Diebler said it's a great sell. He said, we got a guy who's been part of the player development with some of the best players to ever play the game. A guy who's seen all levels of basketball. It's great when I'm talking to recruits, talking about our staff, and talking about the importance of player development, and can speak on his experience. He said he's going to help us in international recruiting. He said, like, the recruiting stuff it's going to take a little bit of time to kind of get rolling. But he said, I can tell you it's been well received talking to recruits about his experience. I thought that was interesting and of note, because that's not necessarily the reaction that I would have maybe expected. But yes, he will be taking on a recruiting role as time goes on here. Diebler also mentioned when they get the team together this summer, and the Buckeyes are not all on campus yet. They should all be there by the end of the week, or at least all the guys that we know will be on the team next year. The roster might not be totally set just yet, but he mentioned like certainly, you do individual work and skill work and things like that, but he talked about doing like small group work, and said that like Wells has already brought some new concepts and different ideas, I guess, that they're going to be utilizing this summer. And so that was intriguing to me. I felt like we got some good insight there. There's going to be more to dig into as we move on. And then along those lines, certainly the addition of Dave Richardson, who Ohio State fans certainly, I would imagine, would recognize the name. He was at Ohio State as the strength and conditioning coach from 2005 to 2018. So Thad Matta hired him in his second season, and then he was with the program all the way until the end of the Matta era. And then Holtman did not retain him, hired Quadrian Banks, and now Quadrian is in search of a new job, and Dave Richardson is back. So I can tell you from years and years of covering this program how absolutely beloved Dave Richardson is to former players. They will talk about just how absolutely like intense and challenging and hard and things it was, but they, like, to a man, love him. If you ask any guy who played for Ohio State from 05 through 17, they'll probably talk to you in very glowing terms about Coach Rich. There's a real affinity there for him among players who went through the program. And it is interesting to me because I do remember when Ohio State, when he was not retained by Holtman, and there was certainly an element of the fan base that was saying for the last couple of years that they felt Ohio State wasn't tough enough, wasn't physical enough, and that was Dave Richardson's fault. And I felt like that was an element to that whole situation that even in that moment, I remember thinking, like, this seems unfair to a certain degree to him, because I felt like you started looking at like some of these players, and I don't think you have to go very far to look at like Ohio State's roster in those last few years in the Matta era. And yes, we can say that those teams didn't play hard enough or tough enough or whatever, but was it really the strength coach? I think most of us probably would argue otherwise, especially with the benefit of a little bit of hindsight. Diebler's stoked to get Dave Richardson back. And when I talked to Dave Richardson, he said that he wasn't necessarily looking to move. He was at Arkansas working for John Calipari and was doing very well. And Arkansas has been on quite a run. He's been deep in the tournament. Dave Richardson has essentially every year here these last couple of years. Diebler said he's won everywhere he's been. He said he's won championships. He's won in March. He said, I'm really excited about the impact he's going to have. He said, I've got great trust in him. I've seen him operate on a day-to-day basis. He absolutely raises our level. It will be interesting to see just like what is different, how we maybe see things be different under Ohio State. Like, I didn't ever really feel like Ohio State was lacking from a strength and conditioning standpoint when it came to Quadrian Banks, but like sometimes just a different view on things produces different results. And I also think that like whatever program you are, when you have these are the addition of Dave Richardson and the addition of William Buford, to me, strike me as you are bringing two more people into the building who know what it takes for Ohio State to be where the fans expect it to be, where the internal expectations strive to be. You have guys in there in that building who were there when Ohio State was that. I think in general, like that all seems like stuff that you want when you're trying to like get a program where you want it to be. As far as like Will Buford goes, he has not coached before. He's been doing like player development stuff in Columbus. And when Diebler was asked about him, he said it wasn't a case of like he didn't just hire him because he's Will Buford or because he's a former player. When it came to talking about him, he spoke about, trying to find a quote here. He said, so going into the offseason, I wanted to create a pathway for somebody to get started in coaching. He said, we got a job to do here too. It had to be someone who could add value. He said, I've been real impressed with Will's work ethic, his ability to pick up things quickly. He said it was important to add a former player because we talk a lot about family, a lot about what this program can do for people who've been a part of it. But Will wasn't hired because he's a former player. He said that was an element of it, but I think he's going to be really good for us. We've already seen in a short period of time his hire can be valuable, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds. This is interesting. I mean, I think like he's going to have a whole wide range of roles and duties in this job. You know, I do wonder ultimately like how different is this from like a grad assistant, which oddly enough Ohio State doesn't have on its roster. And then adding or promoting Jamal Walker. My experiences around the team the last 2 years and the practice stuff I occasionally get to see and the workout stuff, like he's every bit of a vocal, hands-on, impactful coach. And Diebler said he's honestly had an associate head coach voice in our program since he got here. He said he's earned it. It fits him. It's the best thing for our program. So that kind of runs the gamut there. All the coaching moves. We'll have more time here as we move through the summer to dive into some of this stuff a little bit more, get to know these guys a little bit more. But moving on from all of that and starting to look at like some of the roster stuff and look at just kind of like where things are. Certainly every team or every coach this time of year will tell you how much they like their team. You're probably not going to find anybody in June who's going to be like, man, my team stinks. Or boy, I don't like whatever. Like we are just taking our first steps into eternal optimism time, or not eternal optimism time, but the most optimistic time of the year where everybody feels pretty good. And, you got guys that everybody's getting better. They added 10 pounds of muscle and the jump shot is better and things like that. But, Diebler said a couple of times that he believes the depth of this team is greater than either of his previous two teams. And we talked a lot about that throughout the year and the inability to but the inability to like really have a deeper bench. That had an impact, certainly last season. And one of the guys that he was specifically asked about was Josh Ojonwuna. And we've talked about him on here. I interviewed him during the Big Ten tournament. And I mean, I think all of us as the season went on kind of understood the journey that he was on to get back from the torn ACL suffered at Baylor last February, where when he enrolled at Ohio State, there was hope that the NCAA was going to pass legislation, that everyone would get 5 years. And so if he was able to get back in early February, then, he would play a couple games and be part of the rotation and then have a full 2026-27 season. And then when that legislation never passed, it was kind of like, well, he's not going to come back and play 7 games, and then that's his senior year, and then he's done. So, yeah, like the progression to his to his return to court, like just it kind of did plateau a little bit there because it was like, well, it's early February. He's not going to play a meaningful game now until November. So, like, the decision was made to just kind of back off a little bit there. And Diebler talked about that today. But then he said he's progressing. He said he's playing contact 1-on-1. He said we've been conservative just to try to make sure because we haven't needed him to play 5-on-5. He said we're fully anticipating him being available this summer. And he said this isn't a thing that's going to drag out until the fall before we've been able to see him play. We've just been conservative for his sake and for ours because he's an important part of the team. He's moving well, working extremely hard, been extremely impressed with the progress he's made. He said, I wouldn't say all the way back yet, but getting closer and closer, and it's been great to see. So another thing that's really interesting to me is like how these bigs all kind of fit together. You've got Kentucky transfer Andrea Jelovich, who's 6'11", 235. You've got Ivan Yagovin, 7'2", 260. Vuk Lazarevich, 7'1". There's some bigger options in the paint. And certainly that stuff has to play out. But that was one of the things that I asked Diebler about today was just, how do you see this? Like, can you just kind of walk, quick aside, I hate the talk to me about blank in an interview because it's not a question. But I was curious for Jake's general thoughts about, like, you have a couple of bigs. How does this fit? Like, what do you see with this group? And he said, that's going to take some time. But he spoke a lot about Jelovich. And he said he can play with Josh or Ivan. He said Ivan's had a great spring. He's really excited about him. But He said going in the portal, we needed someone we felt like could play the quote-unquote 5 alongside Amari, but also we wanted to be able to shift the other way and play almost 2 true bigs at times, because I think you need that in this league. You need depth at that position. He said, I think it allows us to play at a higher level longer because we have more bodies we can move in and really throw multiple guys at the opposition throughout the course of the game. The ability of Yelovich to play alongside both those guys is important. He's really skilled. He can space the floor. Josh and Yvonne are more physical and bigger bodies than what we've had the last 2 years really inside. Both those guys are big physical guys, so we do have the ability to shift things around. He did point out that like with Vuk, that it's going to be time, for him. He said he's brought in to provide depth and most importantly, develop. He's got to get stronger, a little bigger, a little more physical. Said his development this year was impressive. His ability to shoot, pass, dribble at that size will be valuable. He said when it's valuable, we'll see. So obviously pencil him at the end of the rotation. But it's not just necessarily the bigs who are bigger. And this is something else that Diebler mentioned a couple of times. He was asked, why do you have confidence that this team will be better and will allow you to take that step beyond simply making the tournament? But how do you get to make a run in the tournament? And he said, so the question was like, what gives you the confidence that this team can do that? He said, it's our size, our versatility, and our depth. I don't think we were deep enough last year. He said there's a lot of factors that go into being able to build some depth. I think we've improved in those areas that have allowed us to have a roster that has more depth. He said those 3 things, our positional size, our depth, and then the ability to play different ways, both in our front court and our back court, which should serve us pretty well. Now, when it comes to like that size, we talked about the bigs already, but then you look on the perimeter, and he said we wanted to get bigger on the perimeter. Justin, Pippen, Curtis Givens, Jimmy Williams, they all have size. He said, I think that'll help us defensively. All 3 of those guys are two-way players. He said we needed to be able to guard the ball better, and all 3 of those guys will help with that. It allows us to be able to shift that third guard back and forth between really big with Anthony Thompson or Alex Smith, or even at times as Amari develops, maybe shifting him down that way toward the 3. Or we can shift it to 3 guards because Jimmy's a bigger physical guard. Curtis is a bigger physical guard. Justin's got good size. We felt like getting more size and two-way play on the perimeter was important as well. So there was reference made a couple of times to like just the general feeling, like you see guys walking around, you see some of the, off-season stuff, and he's just like, we look bigger, was like a common theme that was echoed throughout this. And so I'm going to be interested to kind of just eyeball some of that this summer when we do get to see things. Because, you do start looking on paper and you think like, the backcourt last year, it's one of the reasons that I kept thinking early on, like Tayson Chapman was going to play a more significant role than he did early, was because he was 6'4" and everybody else was 6'2" or 6'1" or, potentially even less than that, or shorter than that, I should say. They should be bigger. And, if these guys can all kind of mesh and figure out how these skills all fit at this level, that's going to be, it's intriguing to me to think about just not giving up as much size 1 through 5 and not having to do something like move Devin Royal to the 3 to try to get bigger. But just having a bigger 3 and a player like Anthony Thompson, who was, point of conversation. Diebler was asked about him a couple of times. Anthony Thompson was he was in minicamp for Team USA U18, was not picked for the team. When Diebler was asked about him, he did point out like he won't be 18 until like later this summer, so he's a little bit young. You talk about the transition period freshmen go through, and drew a Malachi Branham reference to where like he very obviously like had some struggles early, but then figured it out. Talked about hitting like milestones with him, like see where he is at like the beginning of November, where he is in December, where he is when Big Ten play starts. But when it comes to just like his overall skill set and kind of how he fits into all this, Diebler said he's got maturity, he works very hard, he's got a skill set that translates at every level, and that's his ability to shoot. So he's got to get stronger and better at a couple of things, but being as smart as he is and as mature as he is and how he works, he said when that ball leaves his hand, it's got a great chance of going in. All those things make for us to have great expectations, or to have expectations. We've got to remember he's a young player early in the season and that the season is a marathon. When it comes to the two primary returners, John Mobley Jr. and Amari Bynum, Diebler did talk about like keeping the two of them and how important that was. He said, it's really funny this time of year, guys who stay in the same place get forgotten about during these like last 2 months. He said, if John Mobley or Amari Bynum were in the transfer portal, they would have been some of the best players in the country. And there were plenty of teams that tried to push them into the transfer portal. He said, them saying right away, this is where we want to be. We're building something and we want to take it to another level. He said, that was awesome for us as a staff. That allowed us early on to say, how do we build around those two guys? It gets forgotten about. John was an all-league player last year. Amari's trending in that direction. I'm really excited to have a great foundation going into the spring. There was a list that went out. The Field of 68 put out a list of the top 50 returning players who did not transfer, which is, I mean, put that sentence in a time machine, send it back 4 years, and then watch someone's head explode. But when it comes to the top 50 players who are staying at, or the top 50 players who stayed at their school from last year to this year, John Mobley came in at number 31 and Amari Bynum at number 44. So I thought that was of note. The last thing really from the press conference, there was, a little bit of talk as well about about Justin Pippen, about how he fits into things, about why they value him so highly. And in that, a conversation about this team will play differently without Bruce Thornton. So much of the last 4 years was yoked to what Bruce Thornton could and could not do. And this team, we've heard it how many times? So don't shoot the messenger and don't roll your eyes too hard. But like, this team should be able to play faster in a way that it straight up just could not with Bruce Thornton. And that's not a criticism on Bruce. Bruce had an unbelievable Ohio State career. Not everyone is great at everything all the time. And Bruce Thornton was not the most tempo-oriented, up-tempo type of guard. There's a chance that is different this year for Ohio State. Now, I think we all have to sort of see some of that to fully buy into that belief. But that was some of the talk when Justin Pippen came up. And he said his experience and production were important for us because we're losing a lot of production on the perimeter in Bruce. He did talk about Justin's, certainly his bloodlines and recruiting Scotty Jr. When they were at Vanderbilt. The commitment buy-in that he has from Scotty Sr. Said they talked to like other ACC coaches and just, said he was a really good player. They're really excited about that addition. So that's another one. There's like a lot more ground, I think, to really start to try to cultivate and get some interesting stories. But that was another talking point, another thing that I did take out of this, just like their real genuine belief that Justin Pippen's going to be a high level impact player for them this season. And then the last like newsworthy type of thing to come out of the press conference is that the schedule is not finished yet. And we know about quite a few of the high major games. So we know Ohio State will play BYU in Salt Lake City on November 2nd. The Buckeyes will play at UConn on November 13th. The Buckeyes will go to Notre Dame to finish that home and home on December 12th. And then we'll play Kansas in the CBS Sports Classic in Madison Square Garden on December 19th. So we know those all to be true, and we have dates for all those. And as quite a few people have pointed out to me, none of those are in Columbus. And so there's certainly a segment of the fan base that understandably is saying, like, hey, it's great. Ohio State's going to play UConn, and UConn's going to come to the Shot next year. But, like, what would we buy home tickets for? Diebler did say that assuming nothing goes awry, he said if there's no hiccups, he said they're going to start a home and home this year with a team that made the NCAA tournament last year. So they didn't want to go specific on it until it's like officially signed because scheduling's insane. But I've also heard that as well, that they're zeroing in on a team. There will be, if it ends up being the team that I've heard, there will be a degree of familiarity with that team. If what I've heard is accurate, but we'll wait and see on that one. Last thing for you here today is just there was a list published to CBS earlier today ranking Big Ten. And in the preseason here, CBS had Ohio State in preseason. We're not even going to call this preseason yet. As the summer gets going, CBS had Ohio State 8th in the Big Ten. And they wrote, Bruce Thornton is irreplaceable, but Ohio State looks primed to be just fine. Jake Diebler's ability to retain both sharpshooter Junie Mobley and burly forward Amari Bynum is the initial pitch here. OSU could certainly get 25 to 30 points a night from that duo, and Mobley will be in the mix to lead the Big Ten in triples. Then he tossed in 5-star freshman wing Anthony Thompson, who is a shot-making 6'8" southpaw, and a quartet of playable transfers who hail from top 10 leagues. There's something here. Ohio State finally has real depth with 9 Big Ten caliber rotation players. Cal transfer Justin Pippen provides a playmaking point guard. Pippen provides a playmaking point guard who can defend, shoot enough, 51 threes at a 33% clip, and shift Mobley to an off-ball score-first role. Duquesne transfer wing Jimmy Williams is all of 6'5" and can pass, dribble, and shoot. Memphis transfer guard Curtis Givens III projects to be a bucket getter for the second unit. Kentucky transfer forward Andrea Jelovich is a connective piece who can play the 4 or a small ball 5 and bring shooting, ball movement, and offensive rebound. Ohio State got basically no second chance points last year, 9.9 per game, 29th percentile. But that should tick up if ex-Baylor big fella Josh Ojonwuna, 2.7 offensive boards per game in 24-25. If he can get healthy and knock the rust off after missing all of last year with a leg injury. So in short, they like the pieces, they like the potential. Just got to see how it all comes together. So that was a lot to really kind of run through here. I didn't want this one to drag out super long, and I didn't want to just read you a transcript of everything that was said. But those are the top things just kind of bouncing around my head here, a couple hours removed from that press conference. And there'd be a lot of stuff to write about and sift through here as we move further into the week and then a little bit deeper into the offseason. But please go to dispatch.com and check out all the stuff that I had hit the internet earlier today. Or I say earlier today as I'm recording here on Monday night. But yeah, if you go to any of my stories and you click on my name at the top, then that will take you to a page where all my stuff is written. And that's frankly the easiest way to keep track of like what other basketball stories I've written. So I would encourage you to do that. And just that's the easiest way to keep tabs on all the stuff I'm putting out there. There will be some memorial stuff this week, and I'm helping out wherever else they need me during the off season here. But if you want to know where my basketball stories live, that's going to be the easiest place to find them. So having said all that, I got the new Paul McCartney album that came out on Friday, The Boys of Dungeon Lane, which it's funny, in our van, it truncates it just cuts off the title wherever it has to cut it off. And so The Boys of Dungeon Lane gets cut off and it just says The Boys of Dung, which, yeah, I'm a child. It makes me laugh. But I'm really digging the new Casey Musgraves, Middle of Nowhere. I've listened to that a lot. The new Gorillaz, The Mountain. I've been enjoying that as well. I have quite a few albums on my purchase list. So it's going to be, I'm trying to explore as many artists here as I can this summer. And very excited. We did get 21 Pilots tickets at Ohio Stadium, so cannot wait for that. It's going to be, the whole Jardy family is going, and it's my youngest son Owen's first concert. 90,000 people at the Horseshoe seeing his favorite band. It's going to be an all-time moment. Let me know if you're going to be there too. It's going to be a great night. Cannot wait for that. But now I'm going to wrap this one up. As always, you can send along your questions, your comments, your love notes, your hate mail, and otherwise constructive criticism to me at Adam Jardy on Twitter or ajardydispatch.com. Thank you again for listening and for being patient. Thanks to Patrick Flaherty, the Podfather, for getting this out to you all. I'll be back with you again soon. This might be the only one this week, so entirely likely you won't hear from me until next week. But until then, be kind, take care, and we'll talk soon. Want a huge deal on a large pizza? For a very limited time at Donato's, buy any large pizza and add a large one-topping pizza for 50% off. Yes, half off. Use promo code HALF. Donato's, gotta love more.
Be sure and subscribe to the Buckeye Extra podcast in the iTunes Store, the Google Play Store, or on Stitcher.